There's another story that I want to talk about with respect to a gross assassination campaign that the Trump administration conducted. This was the secret mission to spy on North Korea's leader. Okay, the New York Times reports that in 2019, a group of Navy SEALs crept out of the ocean onto the shore of North Korea for a dangerous and secret mission that has never been publicly disclosed until now. How a top secret SEAL Team 6 mission in the North Korea fell apart in 2019. Operation Greenland by President Trump sought a strategic edge. It left unarmed North Koreans dead. Here's the video from the New York Times.
We've been reporting about the military and special operations for more than a decade. And we received a tip about a mission that was so risky and frankly outlandish that I didn't even think it was real. The mission happened in 2019. At the time, President Trump and Kim Jong-un were in the middle of high-level nuclear talks. The mission was to plant a listening device. That device could give the US an edge in all of the negotiations, but it also came with substantial risks. The mission started with a nuclear submarine motoring into North Korean territorial waters. The nuclear sub stopped and released 2 mini-subs that headed into the bay. In those mini-subs is a team of Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs thought they'd be coming into a deserted shore, but there was a surprise. Nearby was a small boat with a North Korean crew. The unseen North Korean boat came close to their mini-subs, and the crew on board started talking loudly and shining flashlights right down into the water where the subs were. If the subs were discovered, they'd have no way out, and so the SEALs that were at the shore fired on the North Korean boat and killed everybody that was on it. The SEALs on shore swam to the boat to make sure everybody was dead. When they got there, they didn't find any uniforms or weapons that suggested the people were security forces or military. In fact, everything there suggested that they were civilian fishermen who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
The wrong place at the wrong time, by the way, is just North Korean fishermen off the coast of their own territorial waters. Like, it's the Navy SEALs that were in the wrong place at the wrong time, technically, you know? Oops, we came into your house and you outed us, so we had to murder you.
The SEALs got out of the area unscathed, but it's hard to overstate the gravity of what happened. The United States put troops on the ground in an unpredictable dictatorship with nuclear weapons, killed civilians, and took extreme strategic risks. This was just one mission, but people within the special operations world say it's part of a broader problem that has plagued special operations for decades. There's never any real outside scrutiny that lets the public and the nation as a whole look at what went wrong. Everything remains top secret.
This was under Trump 1, and there is more details, okay? In 2019, the Trump administration directly violated international law, not only secretly sending military forces to North Korea, but murdering a group of innocent, unarmed Korean fishermen. This, of course, is, under different circumstances, a massive scandal. But a part of the reason why it won't become a massive scandal is because the Democrats knew about it since 2021 and never brought it up, never revealed this, never actually demanded answers for how they put together this special operation, because they too are complicit. You know the details now as far as like what the SEAL Team 6 did. Of course, as Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs reports, needless to say, if an enemy country did this to us, we'd call it an act of terrorism and denounce it in the strongest terms, because it would be an act of terrorism. We'd call the country barbaric, inhuman, but the U.S. claims the right to kill whoever the U.S. wants, whenever the U.S. wants, without anyone being allowed to criticize it. Of course, the Trump administration found that the rules of engagement allowed it to kill unarmed fishermen, and they never told Congress, despite having a legal obligation to do so. Will Trump be held accountable for this flagrant violation of international law? Of course not. This was planned under Obama in 2013, but he backed out due to risks. Trump came in and used old intel to ram ahead and try to prove its competence. I can't, like, this is a separate story. Remember, this is a new story that came out of an old operation that SEAL Team 6 did. Nowadays, the Trump administration is not even hiding that they're doing this kind of stuff, because they're just openly assassinating people on boats and saying, yeah, we're going to do it. You're going to do about it. The aborted SEAL mission prompted a series of military reviews during Trump's first term. They found that the killing of civilians was justified under the rules of engagement and that the mission was undone by a collision of unfortunate occurrences that could not have been foreseen or avoided. The findings were classified. The Trump administration never told leaders of key committees in Congress that oversee the military and intelligence activities about the operation of the findings. Government officials said, in doing so, the Trump administration may have violated a federal law, said Matthew Waxman, a law professor at Columbia University who served in national security positions under the former President George W. Bush. Many of the people involved in the mission were later promoted. Ken Klippenstein reports members of Congress knew about this since 2021, but never told the public. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Mark Warner, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, Devin Nunes, and of course, Marco Rubio, who is now the Secretary of State. How in the actual was it justified? I mean, you have to understand, if you're the bad guys, all matter of internal laws that you have created are designed in a way to always find legal grounds for why you did something that is transparently illegal. This story about a failed 2016 SEAL Team 6 operation from Joshua Hunt at GQ Magazine, he adds on to it about what we have done in the past that's similar. This story about a failed 2019 SEAL Team 6 operation in North Korea is shocking. America's most elite special forces unit rehearsed for months because every move needed to be perfect, but had no contingency for being discovered other than to waste unarmed civilians. The hubris is astonishing. We did something like this back in 2005. The Navy SEALs reasoned. So surely it will work again in 2019 under a different North Korea regime with different capabilities. Even for SEAL Team 6, the mission would be extraordinarily difficult. SEALs who were more used to quick raids in places like Afghanistan or Iraq would have to survive for hours in a frigid seas, slip past security forces on land, perform a precise technical installation, and then get out undetected. Getting out undetected was vital. In Mr. Trump's first term, top leaders in the Pentagon believed that even a small military action against North Korea could provoke catastrophic retaliation from an adversary with roughly 8,000 artillery pieces and rocket launchers aimed at approximately 28,000 American troops in South Korea and nuclear-capable missiles that could reach the United States. But the SEALs believed they could pull off this mission because they had done something like this before. In 2005, SEALs used a mini-sub to go ashore in North Korea and leave unnoticed. According to people familiar with the mission, the 2005 operation carried out during the presidency of George W. Bush has never before been reported publicly. I need you to understand, there is a reason why we don't entertain implementing Article 5 or bringing Ukraine into NATO. That is because Russia, the foreign adversary in this conflict, the belligerent in this conflict, is a nuclear-armed nation. North Korea is also a nuclear-armed nation. Agitating nuclear-armed nations by conducting unimaginably risky operations like this with very little upside and massively consequential downsides like nuclear holocaust, mutually assured destruction, and a potential nuclear holocaust is insane. So not only is this morally repugnant, America behaving like gangsters, like criminals that are not accountable to anything and anyone, and can do whatever kind of cruelty to random innocent civilians all around the world so that they can get somewhat of an advantage in the negotiations process, rather than try to deal with foreign adversaries as sovereign nation states. We try to do this kind of trickery. We end up making these incredibly costly and incredibly dangerous mistakes. And someone in the chat said, wasn't North Korea testing or sending nukes or sending warnings to Japan around this time? Once again, remember, this helps you perhaps understand why, from their perspective, they're doing stuff like this, because Japan is seen as understandably, for foreign adversaries, is seen as an American island, an American-occupied island with American weapons, trained on not only North Korea, but also on China as well, another American adversary, a nuclear-armed nation. So from their perspective, they're like, we have to posture as a matter of deterrence, as a matter of demonstrating our sovereignty. And yet America still violates said sovereignty. So the argument here is twofold. On the one hand, obviously, this is morally repugnant and completely unacceptable. It's a war crime by international standards. But of course, when America conducts war crimes, no one can say anything because the United States of America is the hegemonic superpower. But it's also incredibly dangerous for American citizens as well. You're just you're gambling with the lives of potentially millions of Americans by doing these things. So that's where we're at. And since then, the situation has obviously worsened. Like I said, now that this administration is using a new method of radical transparency, or I guess you could call it shamelessness, they're not even trying to shelter people from the truth. They're just saying it's the law of the jungle. And the people that are in the crosshairs, when they recognize that America is a lawless and evil country that can assassinate their citizens on a whim, eventually they're going to get together. And eventually they're going to understandably try to fight back. What do you think happens then? Even if America, quote unquote, wins in the end with all of our military prowess, with all of our might, how consequential will that be for you and your loved ones? Even if you are only looking at this from the perspective of utter selfishness, why do you think this will improve your lives? What good is it that we are increasingly behaving in a belligerent, militant manner around the world?